Shalom, how's everyone doing? Today's day 50 of the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. I'm going to be learning Siman Seif Gimel. Let's begin. Asur lahosi shem shemaim levatala. It is forbidden to mention the name of Hashem in vain. V'chol hamotzi shem shemaim levatala. Anybody who mentions Hashem's name in vain, over a mitzvah to say, is over on a positive mitzvah. Tichsev, as the pasuk says, as Hashem lokecha tira, you should fear Hashem your God. It also says, Im lo sishmor, if you don't fear Him, liyura, to fear Him, as Hashem hanechbad v'hanora, His honorable and awesome name. V'zeh meklal yira, this is all about fearing Hashem. Shelo haskir shmo gadol, that one should not mention His great name. Kiyum b'derech shevach, unless you're in the process of praising Hashem. Uvracha b'mashu mechuyav, or you're saying a bracha that you're obligated to make. O b'derech limud, or you're learning Torah. V'yira, when one mentions the name of Hashem, he should feel fear and his limbs should tremble. Anytime he mentions Hashem's name, but obviously he should not mention it in vain. It's not just the one name of Hashem, right? The name that we pronounce Aleph, Daled, Nun, Yun. It's not just that name. Any names that is specified for Hashem, right? There's a whole list, either Elokim, Elokinu, Shakai, Tzvakos, Eke. Alright, all these names is included in this halacha. Not just to mention Hashem's name in Lashon HaKodesh is asur, ela afilu b'chol lashon asur. To mention the name of Hashem in any language is actually going to be a problem of saying Hashem's name in vain. Somebody who curses either his friend or himself b'shmo yisbarach, with the name of Hashem, o b'kinoi, or a word that we use to describe Hashem's abilities, right? Kinoihu Mashem Shabshkin Bo HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? This is what we use to praise Hashem, right? It gives the whole list, Kimo HaGadol, that He's the great one, HaGibor, the mighty one, HaNorah, the awesome one, HaNeman, the faithful, HaAdir, the powerful, HaChazak, the strong one, HaAmitz, also means powerful, HaYizuz, right? Chanun, right? Compassionate one, Rachel, merciful, Kana, the avenging, He's avenging, Erech HaPayim, He's slow to anger, Rav Chesed, abundantly kind, right? These are all examples of a kinoi. B'chol lashon, or you say Hashem's name in another language. Chayiv malchus, right? You're chayiv malchus if you curse your friend either using Shem Hashem or using a kinoi. Right? Most people are not careful about this. V'omer b'lashon Ashkenazim, they'll say in German, Gad zel im streifen, like God should punish him. That's an issa d'oraisa of cursing your friend with Shem Hashem. Even though it's in another language, it's still the Isur D'Oraisa. Vim kila below Shem. Okay, let's say somebody curses his friend without Shem Hashem. Uvlo kinoi, not using a kinoi of Hashem. O shahaisa haklal ba miklal devar, or he doesn't curse him straight out. That we infer the curse. Kigon sha'amar, like he says, al yi ploni baruch Hashem, right? This guy should not be blessed. V'chadomer, something similar to that. Afa pish eno chayiv malchus. There's only a chayiv malchus if you use Shem Hashem. Isura miha ika, but it's still asur. It's still asur to curse your friend. One is not allowed to write down Hashem's name. In any language. Many people make a mistake. Right? They'll write Hashem's name in German. Right? They'll write those letters. That's French, and the translation is Im Hashem, with Hashem. So that's also going to be Shem Hashem, right, in another language, but it's still Shem Hashem we're saying. That's very bad. Why? This paper will end up in the trash. Right? And when Shem Hashem is found in the trash, that causes poorness among the Jewish people. That Hashem's name is found everywhere. It's going to come to disgrace. And we need a lot of wisdom and strength to somehow stop this practice. When a person has saliva in his mouth, he should first spit and then say Shem Hashem. He shouldn't say Hashem's name first and then spit. When somebody kisses a sefer, he should first spit and then kiss. When somebody wants to say Shem Hashem, right, but he's not allowed to because he can't say it in vain, so he says the word Hashem. You shouldn't be like people who make a mistake and they say Adoshem. Because that's not respectful. Okay, so obviously this is a jam-packed Sif, and we'll have to see what we can cover. So obviously the Kitzur makes the emphasis that Shem Hashem even in other languages, has the din of Shem Hashem, for example, and one could not say it in vain. So, for example, Hashem's name in English, God, that would also be included in this Isser of saying Shem Shemaim Levatala. Right? So the question is, throughout the day, can somebody just say the word God? Or we say, no, that's actually Shem Hashem, and that would actually be a problem of Shem Shemaim Levatala. So, I just said God, how is that okay? So obviously, we saw in the Kitzur that one of the Heterim to say Shem Shemaim is Derech Limud. So you're learning Torah, right? We're learning Torah right now. However, that Heter is not so simple. Right, the Yavitz actually holds like that. The Yavitz holds that, like, let's say you're learning a Gemara, and the Gemara happens to have Shem Hashem, right? The Gemara says, like, okay, you say a bracha on this thing, and the bracha is Baruch Atah Hashem. You could actually say Hashem Hashem. That's what the Yavitz holds. Most of the Achron and the Magen Avraham, like, most of the Achron don't accept that, and they say you can only say Shem Hashem if you're saying it in the context of a pasuk. Right? Right, so if you're reading Gemara, the Gemara quotes a pasuk, you're allowed to read that pasuk with Shem Hashem. And as the Achronim point out, usually the Gemara doesn't say like a whole pasuk, usually it says half a pasuk. So the Chayei Adam says, yeah, even half a pasuk you could say. That's okay. And Rav Moshe goes so far to say that, let's say there's a whole pasuk, he thinks you're chayiv to say that pasuk with Shem Hashem, right? Let's say you're reading a pasuk, you're reading the entire pasuk. Rav Moshe thinks that you're chayiv to say Shem Hashem, because if you don't, then you're like distorting the pasuk. And we have an idea that we don't like break up psukim if you're reading a whole pasuk by adding other words. And since the true word is the actual Shem Hashem, not Hashem, he thinks that you actually are chayiv to say the Shem Hashem. But if you look in the Aruch Shulchan says, when somebody's like giving a speech and he's quoting a whole pasuk, the minhag really is not to say Shem Hashem. And he says, we try to really distance ourselves from saying Shem Hashem. So, even the context of limud, what I'm bringing out, even the context of limud, it's not so pashut we could say Shem Hashem. Okay, that's really a side point. So the question is, could you say the word God throughout the day if it's levatala? Right. So obviously, sometimes people say like thank God, and that would be okay because that's another heter. If it's shevach, you're doing it to praise HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that's going to be okay. But just I'm not learning, not praising Hashem. Can you say the word God? So Kitzur is clearly saying that. But if you look in the Rambam in Hilchos Sanhedrin Perek Chavav, he clearly groups the name of Hashem in other languages. Let's say in English, he groups that together with a kinoi. All right, he says that's going to have the same halachic status as a kinoi. So obviously, right, he gave a list of kinuyim, those are just ways of describing Hashem. Those are okay to say. So, Al Pi the Rambam, it's actually mutter to say the name of Hashem in other languages. Well, where does this whole idea come from that, why would you think there would be an isser to say the name of Hashem in other languages? It's really a pashut of the Gemara. The Gemara says that instead of saying a bracha, and instead of saying Hashem's name, if one decides to say a bracha in another language, for example, Aramaic, and he uses the Aramaic word for Hashem's name, for example, Rachmana, that's the Aramaic for Hashem's name, he would actually be Yotzei. Right, so if you look in the Binyan Tzion, the Binyan Tzion says, you know why he's Yotzei? He's Yotzei because, who cares he didn't say Shem Hashem, even though every bracha usually needs Shem Hashem, who cares he didn't say Shem Hashem in Lashon HaKodesh? He said Shem Hashem in Aramaic, and Shem Hashem in any language has a din of Shem Hashem, and all the rules apply. That you can't say levatala, the whole works. Okay, so but what's Pshat behind the Rambam? The Rambam clearly says it doesn't have the status of Shem Hashem. So we can answer for the Rambam based off of Akiva Eiger. Somebody asked Rav Akiva Eiger that, let's say I'm not sure if I have to say a bracha right now. So usually we have a rule, Savik bracha sakel. Okay, you're not sure, don't say the bracha. But he has a great option. Just say the bracha in another language. Or let's say the bracha in English. Say Hashem's name in English. The Gemara says that's okay. The Gemara says you'll be Yotzei, right? Like if you say it in Aramaic. So this guy should just do that. And obviously the Rambam says you wouldn't be over on Shem Shemaim Levadal because the Rambam holds it's only if you actually say the Shem Hashem, right, in Lashon HaKodesh. So Rav Akiva Eiger says don't do that. True, the Rambam holds that when one says Shem Shemaim Levatala in another language, it's not considered Shem Shemaim Levatala. The Rambam would agree that in this case, when you're saying a bracha, it is Shem Shemaim Levatala. So, what's the pshat behind that? So, Rav Akiva Eiger says you have to look in the Rambam in Hilchos Shavuos, right? In the halachas of making a Shavuot, that when one makes a Shavuot, even if he doesn't say Shem Hashem in the Shavuot, but he uses a kinoi, or a way of describing Hashem, or he uses a name of Hashem in another language, he's over on the Isser D'Oraisa of Lo Sisa Hashem Hashem Elokecha L'Shav. He's over on the Isser D'Oraisa of saying Hashem's name in vain. Why is that? So Rabbi Akiva Eiger explains, when somebody's making a shavua and he uses Hashem's name, even though it's not really Hashem's name, he's using either a different language or a kinoi, he's showing that he wants to use this as the name of Hashem. Right? In this case, he's making a shavua. Right? The case is he's making a false shavua. If he's making a true shavua, that's a different story. But he's making a false shavua, and he's showing that he wants to use the Shem Hashem, even though it's not actually Shem Hashem. Since he's really using it as that, that's going to be the Isser D'Oraisa. However, just throughout the day, when somebody says Shem Shamayim Levatala, and he just is randomly saying Hashem's name in another language, that would not be the Isser. So bringing it back to that shaila of Rabbi Akiva Eiger about saying a bracha, just saying a bracha in another language, Rabbi Akiva Eiger says you can't do it because even the Rambam would agree in that case, just like by Shavua, right, you're uplifting that name to be Shem Hashem, so too the same thing would apply to a bracha. Okay, but basically, how do we hold in this question about saying Hashem's name in other languages? So if you look in the Mishnah Berurah, you look in the Shulchan Aruch Harav, you look in the Chayadam and the way Rav Moshe holds, that we do hold, we do hold, or at least we try to be careful not to say Hashem's name in English for no reason. But we do have this Rambam, we do have this Rabbi Akiva Eiger, who holds that the Isser really doesn't apply. So maybe we'll be more mekel. Obviously, maybe when we're learning, we could be more mekel. But really, this is something we should be machmir about, because as the Gemara says that in a place where there's people are motzi Shem Shema Levatala, it brings aniyas to Klal Yisrael, or poorness to Klal Yisrael. It brings sakana to Klal Yisrael. So we should probably be extra careful. Okay, shkayach.